What made you realize that a book could be the most powerful content asset for a lawyer?
They can be the most helpful for marketing because what you're doing is you're able to lead people through a series of epiphanies using words, and that's like our most sophisticated technology in some ways for marketing. And the other thing is people also expect books to be a place where they learn new things. Like we go to read a book to see the world in a new way. And marketing is about getting your ideal client to see the world in a new way. And so in some ways, it's like people are ready when they're primed to read a book and be like, I want my mind changed.
If you're an attorney in the pursuit of a successful law practice, fulfilling career, and the life of your dreams, this podcast has it all. Behind the Bench gives you great tools to overcome the unique challenges you face every day as a law firm owner. Welcome to Behind the Bench podcast with your host, Josh Konigsberg, author, partner, and co-founder of Law Firm Marketing Pros and lifelong entrepreneur.
Welcome to another captivating episode of Behind the Bench podcast. This is your host, Josh Konigsberg, and as many of you know, I'm a digital marketing expert specializing in helping lawyers generate more qualified leads online and thus enhance their law firm revenues. Join us as we explore the fascinating realm of law, featuring insightful discussions, seasoned lawyers, legal experts, and industry leaders. Special thank you to our sponsor, Law Firm Marketing Pros. They get you more leads, more clients, and more profits. Hey, Josh Konigsberg here with another exciting episode of Behind the Bench podcast. Today, I'm super excited about our guest, Adam Kosloff. He is the founder and CEO of Virtuoso Content, an agency that crafts high-quality written marketing materials for law firms, including blogs, website content, newsletters, ebooks, and even full-length books. A Yale graduate and former Hollywood screenwriter who once worked with Mel Brooks, one of my favorites, Adam has been combining storytelling with strategy since 2013 to help over 1,000 attorneys communicate more clearly and effectively. Outside of his work, he's a passionate advocate for the keto diet and has volunteered his time with nonprofits like the Nutrition Coalition and support reform of the U.S. dietary guidelines, which I love both of those topics. Adam, your career path has been anything but traditional. Yale science major, Hollywood screenwriter, and now CEO of a content agency for law firms. What ultimately led you to the legal space?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you again for having me on, and thank you for the listeners and watchers. I hope this will be entertaining. My path has been really eclectic. I did not set out to be a founder. I didn't set out to work with attorneys either. My dad was an environmental lawyer in Connecticut, did a lot of good work there, and my grandfather was a city engineer for New York City and worked on their water pollution. So I was kind of drawn to engineering and using the law to help the world in some ways. But I was a biophysics major at Yale, and then I was terrible in the lab. I got I took organic chemistry and I got a D- because I just never went to class. And then I was like, why am I doing this? And I switched majors to be geophysics without ever having taken a course in geology because I had all these science credits. Anyway, halfway, when I was finished the college, I was like, I spent a lot of time in these singing groups, these a cappella groups, and I wrote a lot of our sketches. And I was like, well, my best friend moved to LA to be a screenwriter, and he went to USC. And I'm like, I'll do this. This seems like a good use of my physics degree. So I moved to LA. I worked for the producer of The Simpsons and The King of the Hill and a lot of these major animated shows, and worked at Sony Animation for a while. And then I was like, I decided to go out on my own and kind of write freelance instead of staying in the system. As a day job, I needed to pay the bills in between animation gigs, and I stumbled into SEO writing in the very nascent days of SEO writing when you could just write the same keywords a million times. I ended up writing tens of thousands. I mean, I don't know how many tens of thousands of pages for lawyers, a lot of other kinds of people. And anyway, after a while, I started having kids. I'm like, maybe I can turn this into a real company, something that's not just a freelance career. I initially resented it. I'm like, I got to write a page on DUI law. I really want to write some cartoon, it's it was so annoying to have to do it, but I was good at it because I probably did so many of these pages. And I really do like working for lawyers. And I also do enjoy, getting into super wonky areas and trying to explain them for the lay audience. I think that's like kind of where I shine, where I'm like, someone's got like, I remember writing for this woman. She was like maybe one of the best white collar criminal defense attorneys on the planet. She like was like a genuine thought leader. And I liked kind of like analyzing her ideas and trying to re-explain what she was talking about for like a mass audience. That was like super fun for me. So anyway, long story long, I ended up starting to using other writers, and I founded this agency, Virtuoso Content, in 2013, and I've grown it over the years. And I now have about 60 writers and more coming, and 60 clients, and I'm just trying to grow it.
Amazing! What an amazing journey! So you've done obviously everything from SEO copy to working with someone as famous as Mel Brooks. What made you realize that a book could be the most powerful content asset for a lawyer?
This is a great question, and I actually got me like my wheels spinning this morning. I wanted to write down some answers because I wanted to be precise. And so, because part of it is like, well, books are just like, you sort of stumble into it. Books are, the market seems to demand books. So I've been writing a lot of books just because lawyers want them. But I also wonder like, why? Is there some justification? And one thing I thought of it is like, books are the vehicle by which we communicate the most important ideas in humanity. Like all of our religious texts, the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, whatever. These are enshrined in books. And the big ideas like Karl Marx or the Origin of Species, they're books. And so I think when you're trying to market something, a marketing by definition is the idea of educating your market, educating the people to desire your particular product or service. Like, why should you do this? And it requires a set of epiphanies that are causally linked, cause and effect. Oh, wow, that link together to give you a new worldview. And that's why books work to kind of convert people to like religions or to new ways of seeing the world. And so I think the same way they can be the most helpful for marketing, because what you're doing is you're able to lead people through a series of epiphanies using words. And that's like our most sophisticated technology in some ways for marketing. And the other thing is like, people also expect books to be a place where they learn new things. Like we go to read a book to see the world in a new way. And marketing is about getting your ideal client to see the world in a new way. And so in some ways, it's like people are ready when they're primed to read a book and be like, I want my mind changed. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think books are particularly powerful. I'm not saying like nothing else can work, obviously, but they're really powerful in that way.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that it positions you as a thought leader so you can create what I'll call a tribe, a following, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've been working with attorneys for 15 years now, and a lot of them I've spoken to think about writing a book, but they never follow through. What do you think stops them, and what do you think they're leaving on the table by not writing a book?
It's a fantastic question. Again, like I love these questions. I was like going over them, and like they really got me thinking. I think fundamentally, because a book done right is a very sophisticated vehicle or asset. Like it's easy to tweet. It's slightly easy to write a blog post or an article or a law journal article or something. The bigger in scope the project, that all has to kind of flow around one idea or one theme, the harder it is. It's a question of both of structure, because in order to kind of keep the structure simple, it requires a tremendous amount of energy. Otherwise, it just kind of whirls off and becomes a bunch of discrete ideas. So to keep it trained on one idea is very difficult, and it requires a lot of effort and a lot of training. That's why it's like hard to write a screenplay, but it's easy to tell a story when you're talking to somebody. It's the same concept. And so the longer the project is, the harder it is to keep it simple. And so, and I think this is one thing that's a challenge for lawyers, because lawyers are often very verbal. They're precocious. They're able to create cause and effect arguments. But this is a particular type of writing, which requires special training.
So what do you think the biggest misconception is that attorneys have about what it really takes to write and then publish a great book?
I think it's the DIY myth. I think it's easy to write a kind of a meh book or to feed it to an AI or to, write it yourself. But like, if you want a great book, so you can write basically a book that's boring or that doesn't have any purpose or that's just like for show. To write a truly great book requires a lot of different pieces to be integrated together. It has to be structured right. It has to have a business purpose. It has to be themed correctly. You have to have the right editing, the right tone, the style. And if you think about this as an org chart, Where like you're the author, writing a good book is in the center. All the different spokes come off. There's editing, there's writing, there's tone, SEO, marketing. There's so many pieces to it. And then each one of those pieces of the wheel has additional spokes to it. And you realize that writing a book, even though it's one idea, is composed of like dozens of discrete processes. And you have to be good at all of them in order to do this. And that's why it's difficult even for single authors to write, because it's better because you have to be a great editor. You have to be good at structuring. You have to be good like with marketing. And so trying to do a DIY is like, you could do it maybe, but it's going to require like years of your life or a long time. And it may not even be good.
Right. So that's a time issue, which leads me to my next question from your life experience in doing this. So you've helped over 100 attorneys go from zero idea to a published author. So
Right.
Walk us through what we'll say is the virtuoso way of writing a book without them having to leave their work as an attorney, leave their cases. So tell us how you do it so they can continue running their firm.
Right. And I think it's a combination of two things. One is the attorney needs to have control over the quality and the sense of the process. That's incredibly important. You need to feel like the book is written like in your voice, even if it's not exactly your voice, and it's communicating the sophisticated ideas you want, in that it's not saying something that makes you feel stupid. Now, what we do, and I found this works really well, is like there's many people and there's many chefs in the kitchen. So I tend to be the person who structures the book and kind of guides it creatively from on high. And I have a particular way of outlining these books that keeps it simple. And it's flexible enough to incorporate different kinds of books. Like it's not always the same kind of style. But basically, I will be the person. I will create the outline for somebody, it's usually like 2 or 3 pages, and including the idea. So like I start with coming up with the idea for them, and if they don't have one, and then hey, this is a great idea. We then ideate on it, and I generate the outline, and they say this outline looks good. And then once we do that, we interview the attorney, and this is the most time intensive process. It usually takes like an hour, but basically we use this to get the attorney's story, kind of check if the outline is correct, and from there we then we do the first 10 or so pages and say, hey, this is the copy we've got. Are we on track? Most of the time they're like, this is great, or they may have a few tweaks here or there. Often the first like 10 pages or so is enough. Once we have that, we're able to write the rest of the book, and then it's just an editing process. And so basically we try to check. Yeah.
It's a couple hours.
Not even that. Yeah. I mean, a couple hours, including all the edits. So it's very fast. Yeah. And it's only possible because I have this team. It took a long time to build this team and these processes, but I have an amazing editor. I have some really good writers who've been journalists for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. They've written memoirs. They've written for attorneys, and so we're all working together to kind of coordinate on the projects.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's say you ghostwrite in a book for an attorney. Now what happens? Like, what are the results that you've seen for attorneys who fully leverage the book as part of their marketing and branding?
This is a great question. And one thing I feel bad about, I need to add this to our arsenal, is I don't necessarily track metrics. I'm not a full service marketing agency. So I can't say, hey, someone wrote this book and they got an ROI of like $4 million because they booked this and this many clients. So I don't have access to that information. In terms of what people have told me and what I've seen, people are still continuing to use books I've written 10 years ago and actively in their marketing. There's a lot of different ways people deploy them. Sometimes it's through you can get the book printed and they speak from the stage and they give the books out to people after a seminar, after a TED Talk type thing. There's you can have the book set up on a landing page so that when people can come to the landing page, download the book, and now you have their email and you can create an autoresponder email series to follow up with them. There's many of these techniques. And what we've seen happen is people then, I can't speak to every client because I don't necessarily follow them to that part of the journey, but people, they like us, they keep hiring us.
So really what you're describing is as a lead magnet, and that's real world lead magnet. Let's say if you're on stage or whatnot, and to add as a credibility booster and, again, position you as the attorney, as the thought leader in your space. So let's talk about some industry trends, because obviously AI is the topic today. So with all the AI tools flooding the market with content, how can attorneys still stand out and build authority with a written book?
Yeah, I mean, is a question that the industry is struggling with, and it's like, how good will this AI technology get? And I'd love to be able to say, like, obviously, because AI is kind of a competitor of mine. They'll be like, oh, the AI is never going to, is useless. I think it can be a tool. Right now, the way I see it is like, it's a tool to help you kind of brainstorm and go back and forth, but and iterate and kind of line up your thinking. It's not good enough right now, in my opinion, to write a really good book. It can write a crappy book for you or a generic book. It can be used to kind of color in the lines, but it's almost like a very sophisticated spell check. So you can't use spell check to write a book.
Right.
You can use AI to help you, but the books have to be good. And ultimately, what you're trying, just like I can go to the store and I can buy a book for a dime. There's a lot of books out there that are, but what's the point? Like, I'm not going to read a book that's like chintzy. You have to think of like first them, then you. It's like, how am I going to like help my audience get their results or feel better, and that requires a human touch in some level.
Hey listeners, this is Josh Konigsberg with a quick and exciting announcement. Our podcast is evolving. We're entering a new era, shifting our focus specifically to aggressive growth-minded attorneys, or as we call them, AGM attorneys. Starting soon, the Behind the Bench podcast will officially become the AGM Attorney Podcast. Why the change? It's simple. We're doubling down on practical, actionable strategies tailored specifically for attorneys who see their law firms as growing businesses. AGM attorneys are proactive. They're committed to attracting better clients, mastering their digital marketing, and growing their firms faster and smarter. If that sounds like you or the attorney you aspire to become, stay tuned for more details and get ready to accelerate your growth with the AGM Attorney Podcast. Now let's get back to the episode. And even if they were to go down that path and use AI for themselves, the amount of time that it would take. I know personally, I just wrote a revised sales plan using AI, and it's 25 pages, and I must have spent 15 hours on it using AI.
Right, and this is the problem with it. It's like often it's close enough, but there's like this uncanny valley effect. And I see sometimes like people will have like, especially on LinkedIn, they'll post and they'll have like the green check boxes. I'm like, you used AI to do this, and it kind of devalues the ideas. I'm like, or the person. I'm like, I don't really want, this is just someone like didn't spend any time on this. I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't know how the technology will evolve, but like I write a nutrition Substack. This is like another passion of mine, and I've been trying to use AI to help me guide it. But what will happen is I'll do a version of it in my voice. I'll send it to the AI. I'm like, can you clean this up? It'll clean it up. I'll edit it. So it can go back and forth on this level, but you can't just use it as the tool to create it. It's just not going to be good.
So once the book is published, right, and you talked about using it, as I phrased it, as a lead magnet. So how else can attorneys repurpose it across other assets, like with blogs and newsletters, social media, email campaigns?
You mentioned this in the thing. It's a great question. There's like essentially an infinite variety of ways to do this. One thing we do, and I think has been useful according to like the metrics we've gathered, is like we'll use the book to seed LinkedIn thought leadership posts. So for instance, you'll create a landing page for the book on your website somewhere, and you want to get people to come to that landing page to download the book to get into your ecosystem. Well, what you can do is you can take the book and rip it apart and sort of cannibalize it and repurpose it for a bunch of LinkedIn posts. And at the end, there's like a kind of a call to action to go to the landing page to download the book. So that's one thing you can do. I mean, it's one of those things like there's, I'm sure you can Google it and you'll find like 1,000 things to do with it. But, but I think the critical thing is you want to start with really good material. If you have a great base of material, then the world's your oyster. You can go and go to town, do a TikTok, like have AI create something out of it, but you have to have really good stuff as a base.
That's great stuff, man. So how about if you offer some advice for attorneys who want to grow their law firms aggressively? So for the attorney who's listening right now, who says, you know what, I don't even know what to write about. Where should they start?
Great question. Again, I'm not to like be redundant here, but like I love these questions. It really got me thinking. So there's two ways to do this. One is you have the basic, mechanical, start from the, begin with the end in mind and work backwards. You say, what is my ideal client? Or like, what's the low hanging fruit? Like people I'm already working with that are paying the bills, or people I'd love to work with. And then you say, well, what are their big problems? And then you figure out those big problems, and then you work backwards to construct like a big idea around that big problem. And then you build the book around that theme or around that idea. Or the other thing is you say, well, what's really like cranks your engine? What really makes you excited? Why do you want to write a book? Because there's some idea. And even if it's a stupid idea or it seems irrelevant or it seems like, off point, like go there, follow the will of the wisp and say, okay, well, why, there's something in me that wants to write a book. What is it? And then it's like a matter of excavating that idea and then bringing that back into like some kind of have a mercenary result from it.
That's great stuff. I mean, because I know that a lot of people do get stuck with that, right? So, and again, I really like what you said about identifying the pain, what I call the pain point of their avatar, and then solving the pain, which is a technique we all use in marketing. So based on this fabulous journey of yours, what final insight would you share with an aggressive, growth-minded law firm who wants to leverage the book, not just as a marketing tool, but as a legacy-defining move for their practice?
This is a great question. And it goes back to the entrepreneurial mindset. And the idea I had, which I feel I will stand behind, is you have to jump off the cliff and you build your airplane on the way down. Just, you got to it's action create. My business coach said, action creates clarity. Action creates clarity. And I think that's true about if you want to I'm sure a lot of the lawyers that you're dealing with who are sophisticated entrepreneurs know this. It's like, you got to act almost before you're ready. And because what's going to happen is your paradigms for how this book is going to play out or how it's going to help your practice are wrong. Nobody can do that in advance. You can have plans, right? But you make plans, God laughs, etc. But what you do, and to create a great book, is you just start. And, it can start with somebody who can help you, or you can start on your own. But what you do is you you just take an action and then the project will evolve as you go. And the idea is you just want to make it so that it's not going to take up too much of your time.
Good stuff. So now it's time for us to move on to my favorite part of this. I call this the lightning round. My favorite part of the podcast. It's the lightning round where people get to know you, like you, and trust you. We all know that we like to do business with people we know, like, and trust. It's really simple. I'm just going to ask you a question and you give me your answer. Okay. Whatever comes to mind. So Adam, what never fails to make you laugh?
So this is the one I came up with. Do you know there's a show called Home Movies? And it's a cartoon from the early 2000s, and it's starring H. John Benjamin as this ne'er-do-well Coach McGurk. H. John Benjamin plays Bob from Bob's Burgers, but this coach is just absolutely hilarious. He's just like a complete like loser / former bully, and he just gives advice to kids, and the advice is always wrong. And it's just I love. Yeah,
that's funny. That's funny. So, what's the best compliment you ever got?
Okay, so in my nutrition world, there's this guy Gary Taubes, who's a best-selling author. He's basically the head of the keto movement in some ways. And I one time wrote something to him, and he wrote back, just skim through this. It's terrific, exactly what I need. I can Garyfy it a bit and figure out what to do. But basically, he complimented my writing, and this is great. Kind of my mentor / ideal person.
That's amazing. Congratulations for that. So, Adam, what person would you trade places with for a day?
This is a stupid answer. I wrote John von Neumann, who's this genius physicist from in the mid 20th century, just because he's apparently was had this incredibly high IQ, and I was just I wonder, it'd be like hopping behind the wheel of some kind of Maserati or super sports car, and be what it would be like to think in that kind of brain, or the Buddha, or someone who's achieved massive enlightenment. Because I like to meditate, and so maybe I'd like to see what it would be like to have massive 50 years of meditating 5 hours a day, what that feels like as an inner state.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what is your guilty pleasure?
So I'm a chess player, and my guilty pleasure as I play in tournament chess. I'm trying to become a master. I'm a few 100 points short of that. But my guilty pleasure is playing something called bullet chess, where you have 1 minute to make all your moves. And I end up getting addicted to it, and it's really bad. It's my vice. I'll play until 2 a.m. My wife's we gotta go to bed. I'm no, because when you win, you want to win again, and when you lose, you have to get revenge. And I have this tricky opening I use that where you sack a knight on the third move, and it's almost like a troll opening, but I love it anyway. So that's my mean guilty pleasure.
Dopamine.
It's a dopamine hit, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So what's the biggest risk you ever took?
Okay, so I almost died in a volcano in Hawaii when I was in my early 20s. I was a geophysics major, so I went to Hawaii for some internship, which wasn't really an internship. And on a day trip, I went to the Big Island. I got trapped. I wanted to see like active magma flow, but I got lost, and then the sun went down and like started to rain. And the crust, you have to stay on the trail. Otherwise, if you step off the trail, you'll fall in to like actual magma and die. And 2 days before I went on this trip, a dad was doing this, and he tried to take a picture of his family, stepped off the trail, and fell into the lava in front of his wife and child.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was trapped on this volcano. It was raining overnight, and I had no way. This was before cell phones, and I had to like go off the trail in order to go back to my car. And so for like 45 minutes, I was wandering through this terrain. One time I stepped through like a bubble, and I went down to my knee, but it was just a rock. So that was the scariest moment of my life.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's quite a risk. So worst piece of advice you ever got?
Follow the USDA food guide pyramid and eat lots of carbohydrates. Yeah, bad advice.
I would agree. So what is the one thing you wish you were better at dealing with?
Hypochondria over kind of extreme events like bioweapons, World War III, and stuff like that. That freaks me out, and I don't process that well.
Interesting. So what was your favorite childhood movie?
Tron. I've watched that movie over like 70 times, and it's a geeky movie, but I could like recite whole like blobs of it from heart. I don't know why. Once they go into the computer, I don't know if you've seen the movie. It's like super fun, and actually, even though it was made in like 1982, it kind of holds up. I watched it with my kids recently. So
I don't believe I've ever seen it, but maybe I should put it on my list, right?
I mean, it's not great storytelling, but it's like really cool, kind of an idea. It's a mood, as they would say.
So what is the one book that changed your life?
Okay, so there's this book called A New Kind of Science by this guy, Stephen Wolfram. He's a physicist, and he talks a lot about complexity theory. He's kind of narcissistic, but he has this the book itself is like a mess, but it comes to this conclusion of this thing called the principle of computational equivalence, which basically says that every system in the universe that's not obviously simple is equally complex. So like a cloud is as complex as the human brain, is as complex as the entire universe. And he proves us. And it's like has amazing philosophical implications. And it just really I remember reading it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like seeing God.
It's pretty wild. Yeah. I've not heard of that, but sounds really interesting. So Adam, tell us something most people don't know about you.
So I was almost a professional opera singer. I was a singer in college, and I graduated. I moved to LA, and I was one of the only white guys to sing in this like gospel choir for hire, and we got to like travel around the country and sing for like the presidents of a Washington Mutual Bank, And so I want to go back and become like one of my goals is to sing a lead role in an opera before I'm done here.
Oh, that'd be really cool, right? Bucket list stuff, right? So
exactly.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for being our guest today. This has been incredible listening to your journey and learning more about you. Can you please tell our listeners what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about having you write a book for them or helping them write a book?
Absolutely. And I'm sure like if anybody wants to do it, I'm happy to outline the book entirely for them, talk it through. I mean, no obligation to use me or our services, but I can, give me 15 minutes on the phone. I can help you crack it. And they can use my email is adam@virtuosocontent.com. And I can also give you the link to my Calendly link if they just want to book on there.
And so the website is virtuosocontent.com?
Yeah, VIRTUOSO content.com.
Amazing. Great. Well, that's a wrap for today. Adam, really enjoyed having you on today. And Josh Konigsberg, Law Firm Marketing Pros, signing off for now. Until next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to another fabulous episode of Behind the Bench. I hope you take action on some insight and tips you learned today. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share.